Let's bring in Moshe Lander. He's an economics professor at Concordia University in Montreal. Surprised or not, Moshe, from what the Federal Reserve has said here?
They were right to hold interest rates where they were. There's not enough evidence to see that inflation is picking up, and it's really not something that interest rates are going to be able to address at this point. So let's take a wait and see approach. And when they have their next meeting, they can always increase interest rates then.
Hey, what does it mean for Canada?
It's good news because when we leave our interest rates where they are and they increase their interest rates, our Canadian dollar falls. And so that's not good news because while exporters might like the idea that they have access to our markets, it's not good news because we are essentially importing inflation from the US. So the fact is that since we're both making the same decision here, it shouldn't involve any real movement in the Canadian dollar. And so we're not going to be importing inflation. We're just going to worry about our own domestic inflation.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think the rest of the year might look like here, Moshe, based on your assessments.
Bank of Canada has two more meetings left. So if they're going to increase interest rates, it's probably a 50-50 if they're going to do it at either of those meetings. I think that what we're seeing right now is that the Canadian economy is cooling. What you were seeing there in the Fed comment was their economy has not started cooling as much as ours has. So I think that the default position here for the bank is going to be to hold interest rates unless inflation starts to run away from them. So it did creep up towards 4%. That's not good. But if it stays in that 3 point something range, Bank of Canada might punt as well at Thanksgiving and leave everything for a winter break surprise.
We were tracking a new survey, Moshe, by RBC out today, and I'm just going to give you the outlines here. This was asking Canadians about the cost of living, and 77% saying they are not saving as much, 72% worried about taking on more debt, 21% saying they may need to come out of retirement, and overall, Moshe, the survey found half of Canadians are more stressed about money than they have ever been before, and about a third say they have zero emergency fund. What's your takeaway there on some of those numbers, some of those percentages?
This is the damage of having essentially free money for the last 5 or 6 years. And so I think there are a lot of Canadians, particularly younger Canadians, that don't have experience of the 1980s or 1990s that probably overborrowed. And they thought that the good times would roll forever. And how many times when a recession rolls around do we hear coming out of a recession, this time will be different? And it's never different. It's always going to end in the same way. So I think what we're seeing here is probably the realization that too much money was borrowed, too much money was not saved. And the consequences now when interest rates are rising at a very fast pace is that it's gobbling up what little discretionary income people had in the first place. And it is putting them in stress. I don't know that people say 50 or over would say that this is the most stressed they've ever been because they will remember the 1980s. They will remember the 1990s. And that was much worse than it is now.
So you're saying it's kind of like that old kid's tale about the grasshopper and the ant. Too many grasshoppers, not enough ants.
That's exactly it. And so, I think that there will be a lesson learned here when we come out on the other side of this recession, however long it lasts. But the same thing will be happening again, probably in a decade, when you and I have the same conversation about Canadians being stressed about their lack of disposable income. It's just one of those things that we fail to learn from history.
Moshe Lander, economics professor at Concordia University in Montreal. Good to see you again, Moshe. Appreciate your time.